Hello there everybody, it's Jacob from Storyhouse here on behalf of Passion for Learning. It's so exciting to see you, I hope you're well. This session is so exciting, I can't wait to do this with you. I've had loads of fun planning it and looking at the ins and outs of creating a comic book strip. Now you might be familiar with comics, you might not. By the end of this task, you certainly will. So then, here's what you're going to need for this task. You're going to need a pencil, you're going to need some colouring pens. I have some colouring pens here. You might want to use crayons, you might want to use colouring pencils. It's entirely up to you, but you're going to need some writing equipment. And we are going to need as well our comic book templates. Now you should have these in your pack. There are 10 different ones, but we don't need to use all 10. They're just there because they offer a different variety all the way through. So if you want to just use a few of them, you're more than welcome to do so. This is a personal journey, it's up to you, but there are 10 there to pick and choose from. You could do 10, you might want to use 3, 4, 5, it's up to you. Now, comic books can come in different forms. You may well be familiar with graphic novels, for example, but we're focusing on comic book strips. And to do that, we need to make a bit of a plan first. We can't go in all guns blazing and just do loads of different pictures. They need to make sense. They need to follow a journey. And we're going to use the story of Medusa and Perseus that we've spoken about before. You might want to have a little recap of the first video from week 1 where I told the story of Medusa and Perseus. You might have it ready in your brain. That's entirely up to you. But here's what I'm going to tell you now. We're going to look at some of the key points of the plot because we need to make sure that we get across the story to the people who look at our comic book strip. Here's your first mini task then. With a pencil or a pen and a scrap different piece of paper, here's what I'd like you to do. Have a think about the key events that happen in the story of Medusa and Perseus. Have a think about the key events that happen in the story of Medusa and Perseus. So, for example, the first thing that happens in the story is the king telling Perseus' mother, Danae, that he wants her hand in marriage. And as we know, Danae's not too happy about that. So maybe that's the first plot point, the first thing that happens in our comic book strip. It's certainly the first thing that happens in the story that I detailed in a previous video. So, here's what I need you to do. This could take you 5 minutes, it could take you half an hour. Take it at your own pace, it's absolutely fine. I'm going to do it with you as well. I'm going to pause the video and jot my ideas down. But I'm going to find what I think are the key events in the story and write them down. I'm going to write them down in bullet point form. So I'll do a little dot and then I'll write down the very first one. In fact, I'm going to do that with you now before we begin. So I'm going to get a little bit of a head start. I've got my pen here, it's a purple one because it's exciting. And I'm going to write down in my little notebook here, I'm going to write down plot. The plot basically means what happens. P-L-O-T, plot. So I've written plot and done a wiggly line underneath to kind of underline it because I can't find my ruler at the moment. And I'm going to jot down as the first thing that happens, I'm going to say the king wants to marry Danae, Perseus's mother. So if you jot down the same thing as your first one, that would be really quite cool. Don't need to worry about spelling or anything just now, just jot down your ideas. You might even want to just use capital letters for the characters. You might put K wants to marry D, P's mother. So D is Danae, P is Perseus, and K is king. We're just doing bullet point quick notes here to make sure we've got a plan in our head. That's my first plot point. That's the first thing that happens in my story. And now, in a task where you're going to pause this video, you need to jot down the rest of the things that happen. I reckon you might end up getting maybe 8, 9 or 10 different plot points. So if, for example, in the story, if Perseus had a sip of water and it was just a little detail, we wouldn't write that down as a plot point. We're not looking for little details here, we're looking for the big events that happen to make sure that we've got a plan in our brain. So then, pause this video now. I'm going to do this task with you. And like I say, do it at your own pace. It might take you the rest of your life. Oh, maybe not. But it might take you 10, 15, 20 minutes. It might take you even longer. There's no rush. So pause this video and I will see you very shortly indeed. Okie dokie, how did you get on? At this point now, you should have written down your plot points, the key things, the key events that happen in the story of Medusa and Perseus. I ended up writing down 10. You might have had a few more than that, you might have had a few less, you might have had 10 as well. It doesn't matter, it's entirely up to you. I've written down 10 key points here, and I'm going to tell you what I thought were the key points of the story. So, as we know, in the first one, we had the king wants to deny Perseus' mother. So, we know that's the first thing. But then so for number 2, I said, to free his mother from marriage, Perseus agrees to bring back Medusa's head, to kill her, basically, doesn't he? Then, for number 3, I said that Perseus is given a beautiful gleaming shield and sword from the gods. And that was number 3. For number 4, I said that he finds the 3 grey women. Sometimes people call them the hags. And from them, he kind of creeps up on them and steals the one eye that they share between them. So that's what I wrote down for number 4. For number 5, I said that he finds out where the lair of Medusa is from the hags or the witches or the grey women. He finds out where that lair is, and that was number 5. So for number 6, he gets to Medusa's lair and finds that it has lots of statues, but creeps in using the reflection of his shield, doesn't he? So that means that when he creeps in, that Medusa can't look at him directly and turn him into stone. So he can still see where he's going, but he's doing it through the reflection and not with his eyes straight. For the next one, for number 7, I said that Perseus kills Medusa and then gets her severed head. He chops her head off and puts it into a bag, doesn't he? Yeah, that was number 7. Then for number 8, I said that Medusa's sisters awake in the lair, and Perseus thinks it's a good idea to get out of there because he's done what he needed to do, so he runs away, and that was number 8. For number 9, I said that when Perseus gets back to Seriphus, he finds the king, but the king tries to go back on the deal, doesn't he? It's a bit cheeky. He tries to go back on the deal and basically says, well, I thought you'd get killed by Medusa, and I don't actually want to do what we agreed. Obviously, Perseus is a bit cross about that. So, for number 10, I said that Perseus pulls Medusa's head from the bag and turns the king into stone by making the king look in Medusa's eyes. So the king turns into stone, and that's the end of our story. So in our first mini task, you may well have written down something similar to my 10 key plot points, the 10 key things that happen in the story. If you think you missed one by accident or whatever, that's fine. You can jot it in now, you can add it in. Just make sure it goes in the right order, because when we're doing our cartoon strip in a second, we need to make sure that we get all the events in the right order. So, refer back to your list, have a look at your list that you've created, make sure that everything's in the right order, make sure you're happy with all the key events, and I'm going to see you in a couple of seconds' time to begin plotting our comic strip. It's going to be super exciting. I'll see you in a second. Okie dokie, so for the next step of our task, I have grabbed my mini pencil here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to plot my different points on my comic book now. I'm going to do it in pencil. I'm going to use 2 sheets of those 10. I've gone through all 10 of them, and I've thought of the 2 that I think were the best for what I want to achieve. Like I say, if you want to make yours longer, you're more than welcome to do so. I'm going to use these 2 because they have 5 boxes on each, and that means that altogether I can have my 10 plot points on there. So I'm going to use these 2. What I need to do then is in order, write out what happens in my story. And I'm going to do it just in my little pencil above each box. So we worked out, didn't we, when we jotted down our notes before, we worked out that the first thing that happens in the story, thing number 1, was the king wanting to marry Perseus' mum, didn't I? So I'm going to write that down just here. Can you see on my piece of paper? I'll just move that one there. on this first piece of paper, I'm going to use this as my first piece. I'm going to start with this box here. I'm going to start with this box here because we're going to go from left to right. Like when we're reading a book, we're going to go from left to right. So it's going to go from this box here to start us off, and it's going to go across to this box, and then I'm going to go down to that box, I'm going to go down to that box, and then I'm going to go over to that box. And I think I'm going to use arrows to make it clear to the audience how that flows. But firstly, I'm going to go from left to right, but in the first box, just above the box, I'm going to write down King wants to marry Dinae, which is Perseus' mum. So I've written that really faintly, just in pencil, because I might well rub that out later on. I've just made it sure that I know what's going to go in this box. So then, in box number 2, across here, I'm going to say that the next bit, the next plot point, which was when Perseus agrees to bring back Medusa's head. So I'm going to jot that down here. Perseus agrees to bring back Medusa's head. In fact, I'm going to write a little bit at the end as well. I'm going to say to release Dinae, because that's the reason that he does that. It just doesn't say, oh, I'll go and get Medusa's head. He does it for a reason, doesn't he? So he does it to make sure that the king doesn't have to, won't marry his mum. So that's number 1 here. King wants to marry Dinae. Now I've moved on to number 2 across here. Let's move that a little bit closer to the screen. So here, in a really faint writing, I hope you can kind of see it. If I just press that there, let's see if there it goes. King wants to marry Dinae. And then in the next one, I have Perseus agrees to bring back Medusa's head to release Dinae. So that's plot point number 1, and then plot point number 2. So I'm going to then go to the one underneath that. I'm going to go to the one underneath that. So I've gone from here to here, and now I'm going here. And for number 3, I'm going to write down that he gets a shield, Perseus gets a shield from the gods. Perseus receives, I'm going to use that nice word, receives, shield, and sword, wasn't it? Shield and sword from gods. So I'm just putting quick note form here. I'm not writing out full sentences completely because this is just to remind me what's going to go in each box. Okay, so I've gone from here, I've gone 1 to 2 to 3, and then I'm going to use this one as the next one. It's going to go kind of like in a circle. And I'm going to write in number 4, I'm going to say that he finds the 3 grey women and gets the eye, doesn't he? Finds 3 grey women and gets their eye. Because remember, they share one eye between them and they pop it in when they want to see. It's quite creepy, isn't it? So that's number 4. And then the next one is that he finds out where the lair is. Finds out where Medusa's lair is. And I've just written M's lair because I know that means Medusa. So I have finds the 3 grey women. Goodness me, this paper is attacking me. Finds the 3 grey women and gets their eye. And then the next one I've put finds out where Medusa's lair is. And that's in the last box on this page. I'm also just going to very faintly do some arrows between them in the correct order. So I know that it goes the way that we need it to. And you might even want to cartoonize, is that a word? Basically do some big cartoon arrows to show your reader as well to make it clear. They'll probably be able to follow it, but you might want to do it that way to make it super exciting. So I know it goes from here to here to here to here to here. And that's the first half of my story. So for the next part, I'm moving on to a new piece of paper. I'm moving on to my second side. I've completed the first one in terms of the plot points, the things that happens. I've written the first 5 on there, and I'm going to do the next 5 on this piece of paper. So in the top right corner again, I'm going to jot down Perseus creeps into lair and sees stone statues. That'd be a cool thing to draw, I think. So that's the moment where Perseus creeps into Medusa's lair and sees all her enemies, all her foes that she has frozen just by looking at them. Quite scary, isn't it? So that's for the next one. And then I'm going to move over to this box here. I'm going to move across to this box. And in that box, I'm going to say at this point, Medusa is conquered by Perseus. So I'm going to write Perseus kills Medusa and puts head in bag, not bag in head. That would be weird if you got a bag and put it inside her head. It's the other way around, isn't it? So Perseus kills Medusa and puts her head in bag. Like I say, I'm just doing simple sentences here. They don't need to be flowing sentences because I'm just doing this for me. I'm going to do this so I know what to draw and to cartoon later on. So I've said Perseus creeps into lair and sees stone statues. That's up in the top one there. I'll just show you that so hopefully you can see it quite clearly. And then that's the next one across there. That's the moment where he kills Medusa and puts her head in the bag. I'm going to do my arrows as well here to make it clear that I know I'm going from that box across to this box. I've done an arrow here from that box over to there. And then I'm going to go underneath once more. I'm going to go underneath here to this box. And in that box, that's the box where I need to say Medusa's sisters awake. Medusa's sisters awake Perseus scarpers, which means runs away. He gets away as quickly as he possibly can because he doesn't want to face his sisters as well. He's already had an ordeal for one day, thank you very much. So we've gone from here to here to here. Medusa's sisters awake Perseus scarpers, and then I'm going to go across again. So I'm doing it in a different order this time. As long as we use arrows and make that clear, then that should be okay because the audience will be able to follow it. So I'm going to go across to this next box here, and in the next box I'm going to say that Perseus gets back to Seriphus, but King tries to get out of deal. He tries to get out of the deal, doesn't he? So that's the next bit. So I'm using the points that we've written down before in our first task, remember? And that's point number 9, which is when the king tries to get out of the deal when Perseus returns home. And then I'm going across here to my last one, to number 10. So I've gone from here to here to here to here and to here. And I've done little arrows to make sure it's clear where I'm going all the way through. And then in the last one, it's Perseus getting out. Perseus pulls out Medusa's head and turns king to stone. And turns king to stone. And that is my last key plot point that I've written in there. Now remember, if you can, do those in pencil because that will mean that you can rub them out later. Because for now, what we're trying to do is just know and plan in terms of planning what we're going to do in each box. So it's really important that we know what happens before we write it down or draw down our ideas. So at this point, you might have more boxes. You might want to use different boxes to mine. That's absolutely fine. That's why I've given you a choice because we can make these individual as well. You might do more detail. You might do slightly less. That's fine. But what we need to do is make sure that you know what's going to happen in your comic book. I'm using 2 pieces of paper. One of them's trying to escape, but I'm using 2 pieces of paper and making sure that I know clearly what's going to happen. So at this point, go through your plot points on each one and make sure that you know that the story flows correctly because we've gone with the beginning, we've gone with the middle, and we've gone with an end. And we're going to talk about that a little bit in the next video. This is the end of part 1 of creating a comic book, and we're going to continue with this in part 2. So you might want to fire away with this straight away. You might want to have yourself a little bit of a break. That's absolutely fine. But I hope you've enjoyed comic book part 1, and we're going to crack on with part 2 very soon. I've been Jacob from Storyhouse via Passion for Learning. It's been great working with you. I'll see you in part 2.